barani Afrika.
Hello, I'm Africa 54 Managing Editor Vincent McCory in for Esther the Yuwat. Welcome to Africa 54, and here's what's coming up. Analysts say weapons sales to Sudan in violation of a UN embargo are inflaming the country's civil war. And in our Friday entertainment report, the African Children's Choir has transformed the lives of thousands of African children through music and education. All this and much more on today's Africa 54. The leader of the Sudanese paramilitary rapid support forces, Mohamed Hamdan Dagalo, known as Hemeti, is accusing Egypt of being involved in airstrikes on the group's troops. The Egyptian Foreign Ministry is denying the accusations. Hemeti also is accusing Cairo of training and providing drones to the Sudanese army, which has recently gained an upper hand in the conflict that has ravaged the country for almost 18 months. Although Egypt is being perceived as close to the Sudanese army and its chief, Abdel Fattah al-Burhan, the North African nation has joined efforts by the U.S. and Saudi Arabia to mediate the conflict. Now, the Sudanese armed forces shows VOA the weapons they say were supplied to the paramilitary rapid support forces by the United Arab Emirates, which would be a violation of the United Nations arms embargo. Henry Wilkins has the details.
The Sudanese armed forces say this crate once contained bombs used against them by the paramilitary rapid support forces, the opposing side of Sudan's civil war. It's stamped with the address of the logistics arm of the United Arab Emirates military. Sudan is under a UN arms embargo, and analysts and rights groups say these imported weapons are making the conflict worse.
If the UAE were to suspend all support to the RSF and were to tell its partners in the region not to support the RSF, I think that this war could be over very soon, quite frankly.
The SAF also showed VOA rocket tubes and burnt-out vehicles they said could only have been supplied by Abu Dhabi. The UAE's foreign ministry tells VOA it is not providing any support or supplies to the rapid support forces or to any of the warring parties in Sudan. But a UN report says there is credible evidence to the contrary. Hudson says the UAE is attempting to gain geopolitical influence in Sudan and the surrounding region.
The UAE has had this competition with the Saudis in the Horn of Africa for many years. It seems to be doubling down on its investment, not just in Sudan, but in Chad and Ethiopia, in Kenya. So I think the UAE wants to be the kind of great power in the Horn of Africa.
Iran has also violated the same arms embargo by providing drones to the SAF, according to the Dutch non-profit PAX. The Sudanese ruling council has denied this, according to media reports. VOA asked Sudanese Finance Minister Jibril Ibrahim if the SAF had been receiving support from Iran.
This is the official institution of the country. They can buy arms from anywhere.
The Iranian Foreign Ministry did not respond to a request for comment. While nations vie for influence in Sudan, civilians are bearing the brunt of the conflict. UN figures show 11 million people displaced and 25 million needing humanitarian assistance. Mariam Mohamed Farah Naim was injured by RSF shelling in early September.
I knew right away that my legs were broken because when they told me to move before the second bombardment, I couldn't. My daughter was hurt as well. She was screaming, screaming and screaming.
A year and a half in, the world's largest displacement crisis shows no signs of letting up. Henry Wilkins, VOA News, Omdurman, Sudan.
Hurricane Milton has now barreled into the Atlantic Ocean after ripping across Florida, where it knocked out power to more than 3 million customers and whipped up at least 150 tornado warnings. The U.S. state of Florida took the brunt of the Milton's force where it caused heavy damage. With Joe Perinalete in Tampa, Florida, VOA's Anita Powell has more.
Twisters, heavy flooding, and a massive repair bill. This was how Hurricane Milton made its mark on Florida overnight Wednesday, slamming first into the sleepy barrier island of Siesta Key. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis said Thursday that state officials are on the scene.
We had over 80,000 people that were into shelters overnight as the storm hit the state. We will better understand the extent of the damage as the day progresses. First responders have been working all through the night to help people who were in distress. And what we can say is the storm was significant, but thankfully this was not the worst case scenario.
Lisa Reyna, a Gibsonton resident who took shelter in nearby Tampa, told VOA the roof flew off her home.
The devastation around our neighborhood is bad. Nobody knows what they're doing. This is horrific. I feel for everybody.
Washington knows it's in the eye of a political hurricane over the federal response. President Joe Biden spoke Thursday and again urged former President Donald Trump in stark terms to stop spreading misinformation aimed at discrediting the government's response. Trump had said falsely that an emergency $750 payment made available to storm victims was the only assistance they could expect.
What we're providing now to make sure people have the emergency relief they need, the dollars just to be able to get a prescription filled, to get a baby formula done, all the things, that $750 that they're talking about, but Mr. Trump and all those other people know it's a lie to suggest that's all they're going to get.
He also spoke of next steps.
I think the Congress should be coming back and moving on the emergency needs immediately. And they're going to have to come back after the election as well, because this is going to be a long haul for total rebuilding. It's going to take several $1 billion.
Aid workers say this double whammy of storms, first Helene, now Milton, is especially rough for low-income communities and minorities.
They're already hanging by a thread. And this is oftentimes just for storms that don't even make the news. And so with Milton, we're looking at a whole new level of danger.
This Tampa neighborhood knows this well. Resident Carlos Suarez cursed the storm, but offered some solace. We survived, he said. And that, he added, is all that matters. Anita Powell, VOA News, Washington.
And still to come, we'll tell you which West African country makes the best jollof rice. Stay with us.
One in 10 eligible voters in the United States are immigrants who are naturalized citizens. Among them is an estimated over 2.4 million foreign-born Africans who are now U.S. citizens, according to the Pew Research Center. On this week's Our Voices, we'll explore how African immigrants will be a key voting bloc in the upcoming presidential election and how women of color are mobilizing to ensure voting rights, especially for citizens of African descent. Join the conversation each week right here on Our Voices.
You're watching VOA's Red Carpet. My name is Jackson Mvunganyi. Thank you so much for joining us each week right here on Red Carpet. We bring you the latest in
In other news, Cameroon is banning any talk about 91-year-old President Paul Biya's health. Interior Minister Paul Atanganji said any debate in the media about the president's condition is strictly prohibited and offenders will face the full force of the law. This action comes after Biya's prolonged absence fueled widespread speculation he was ill. Biya has not been seen in public since attending a China-Africa forum in Beijing in early September. Polling in the United States has become one of the most common ways to gather opinion on a political candidate. From single issues to a whole campaign, opinions can generate valuable insight for political strategists as pollsters look to include more diverse voices in their data sets. How do they ensure the information they are getting and how they are getting it is accurate? VOA's Anthony Labruto spoke to Chris Towler, the principal researcher for Black Insights, a nonpartisan polling firm specifically looking at the African-American voting participation in the United States for the answers. Well, looks like we have a little technical problem there. We'll get that in a moment. Now, there is a significant group of voters who believe one religion should dictate the nation's laws. Let's go back to that package about the polling and see how polling is done and what are some of the challenges that pollsters face as they try to collect the data.
Breaking news on world events is now more accessible to viewers than ever before, with more people creating and sharing information and reacting to political events on social media. Political campaigns are taking notice and tapping in on the trend, as they have with every modern technological advance. Since the 1950s, the American industry of polling public opinion has grown into a sophisticated discipline that is now entrenched in American life.
Where in the late 1700s, when the country started, it was about 20 to 30,000 people average per district. And so you can see how the type of representation now needs a different type of measure or tool to see what the people think. And that's kind of the reason why polling is relied upon so much in American politics, because there's a need to get the temperature of the people. And it's nearly impossible at this point to go talk to enough people individually to actually get a sense of where they stand.
To better capture desired audiences, most public opinion pollsters have moved digitally towards online platforms or through text-based apps like WhatsApp or iMessage. Towler and most public opinion pollsters in the United States typically survey between 1,200 and 1,500 people for each questionnaire they create.
The first is to make sure that there's some sort of preamble or introduction to the survey that identifies what the survey is doing, that doesn't catch people off guard, that identifies the information and the objective of the survey in a way that's relatable to the Black community. And so, making it clear that we value Black opinions. That's why we're talking to you.
So far, Towler and his team of researchers have conducted 4 nationwide polls focusing on the 2024 U.S. general election. His surveys target specific voter demographics, such as African Americans, allowing for a more precise insight into targeted voter communities.
That consideration needs to be a bit different for Black people, as yes, there might be some hesitation to answer income questions, but there might also be hesitation around other questions. If you're asking sensitive questions about racial identity, questions about police and policing, or about racism and facing discrimination, right? All of these other measures are experienced differently in Black America in ways that could be sensitive on a survey.
Getting the most accurate information on these groups, though, requires a tailored approach.
So really paying attention to how you word questions and the order that you place questions not only encourages people to take the survey, but it encourages them to stay in the survey and to finish the survey and not get turned off by certain things.
As a participant taking a public opinion poll, Towler stresses that your voice, no matter how you express it, carries important information to pollsters.
If you feel like it's coming from a group or organization or a pollster that you trust, that you think is collecting good and useful data, try and answer as truthfully as you can and get through the poll. If there's questions that you don't feel like you can answer, just don't answer them and move on to the next rather than stopping the poll altogether, right? It's important that your voices are heard, that your voices are included. And if there's something that you don't want to answer, that'll be reflected in the final results, right? They'll look and say, oh, people didn't want to answer this question. Maybe something's wrong with this question. Maybe we need to look at this topic more. But if you just drop out of the poll, if you say, oh, I don't like that, I'm not doing this in the poll or the call, your whole information, your voice is completely lost.
Anthony Labruto, VOA News, Washington.
Well, staying with the U.S. elections, there is a significant group of U.S. voters who believe one religion should dictate the nation's laws. That notion is a divisive issue between liberals and conservatives and Democrats and Republicans. The VOA's senior Washington correspondent Caroline Presutti explains.
Two rallies, two different views.
Giving Jesus a standing ovation.
This is the Rally for Democracy, supporting all religions. This one is the Reawaken America tour.
Jesus is my savior. Donald Trump is my president.
Now in its third year, the tour supports Christian nationalism, the idea that the United States is a Christian country and should have laws reflecting that.
I will gladly be a Christian nationalist, because what can you say against Christianity? And they talked about, I'm following the God of love, following my life after Jesus, and I love my country. MAGA, make America great again. What is wrong with that?
Nothing, says Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump.
Together we're warriors in a righteous crusade to stop the arsonists, the atheists, globalists, and the Marxists, and that's what they are. And we will restore our republic as one nation under God with liberty and justice for all.
Our country was built on the Christian and Judeo values and principles. That's how they wrote the Constitution.
America's Constitution does not mention Christianity. Instead, it grants freedom of religion. The Declaration of Independence says rights are provided by a creator and mentions, quote, nature's God.
Father, we thank you for pastors of America.
Still, ministers at the Reawaken America tour take an oath to preach voting for godly candidates. Democrats say that's a violation of the constitutional separation between church and state.
The ministers out there really need to look and talk to their congregations about what it means to have liberty and justice for all.
Others at the Rally for Democracy agree, and some call for a debate on the teachings of Jesus.
What did he say? What did he do? Because this kind of message that wants to attack immigrants and will cause most suffering to the poor and vulnerable is literally a movement that is anti-Christ.
Add to that the abortion debate.
And let us all agree, one does not have to abandon their faith or deeply held beliefs to agree the government should not be telling her what to do.
A Pew Research survey found nearly half of all Americans think the Bible should have an influence on U.S. laws. But the same survey found few think Christianity should be named the nation's official religion. Caroline Presutti, VOA News.
Well, the debate over which West African country makes the best jollof rice was decided recently at the 7th Annual Jello Festival in Washington. The festival was not just a competition to see who made the best rice, but also a showcase of African heritage and culture in America. VOA interns Melissa Kaleka and Fatuma Kalala Almasi have more.
Everybody say Ghana Jollof on 3. 1, 2, 3.
The Jello Festival in Washington, D.C. grew from an internet debate on which country makes the best jollof rice. African-owned restaurants from all over the U.S. took up the challenge to compete for the title of the best jollof rice. This was Ghana's first win, beating their longtime jollof rival and 2023 winner, Nigeria, who placed fourth.
Let's go Ghana!
Ishmael Osekre is the founder and organizer of the annual festival and a proud Ghanaian. He says he was inspired to start the festival in 2017 after following a light-hearted online argument.
You know, I was on Twitter, I saw Ghanaians and Nigerians arguing about who makes the best jollof rice, and I wanted to settle the debate about who makes it. So I thought, why don't we do something that will give people a chance to taste and vote for the best?
The festival brought together many first-time visitors from different cultures who were excited to try out the different African cuisines. Among them, Tracy Tawia, who said it was not the food that she connected the most with, but the sense of community.
It's nice to experience other cultures and different cuisines from other countries, and seeing all these African countries come together to do this is wonderful.
Sal Bangura, a representative of the Sierra Leone team, viewed the festival as a way for Africans and African Americans to connect and network.
Bringing us here to let other culture, other nationalities, especially Americans, to taste our food is a wonderful thing. It's about network. We eat their food, so why can't we give them our food?
Of course, it's not an African celebration without music and dancing. The heavy rain did not dampen the mood of the festival goers, who kept dancing, energized by the lively DJ and hosts. People huddled around vendors selling traditional African dishes, clothing, jewelry, and much more. King Guapo, one of the hosts for the festival, was happy seeing so many people of different races and nationalities come together.
So one thing I pride myself on is bridging the gap and connecting the diaspora. You know, we used to receive a lot of misinformation about Africa, our African American counterparts, so I want to involve myself with community building events that bring all cultures together and teach one another.
While Ghana won the battle in DC, the war is not over. Despite the competition, for some people, it didn't matter what country made the best jollof rice. For someone like Francis Imobisa, the jollof rice his wife cooked at home was the real winner.
Do you have a favorite place to buy jollof rice?
I do. The one my wife's cook at home.
For VOA, I'm Melissa Kalika, Washington, D.C.
Good job, Melissa Kaleka. Now, how about we continue with the dancing after the eating? The African Children's Choir, founded by Ray Bannett, has transformed the lives of thousands of African children through music and education. Jackson Mvunganyi, host of VOA's Red Carpet, joins us with the details. Hello, Jackson.
Hello, Vincent. For over 40 years, the choir has become a symbol of hope and cultural exchange. They have inspired global audiences with their enchanting harmonies, vibrant performances, and hopeful message. I spoke to Jim Luze, the tour manager, and David Mwanguzi, a choir member, about their current tour, their first since the COVID pandemic. Let's check it out.
I sing and dance and drum.
Okay, have you had a good time?
Yes.
Which states have you performed in?
Pennsylvania,
Connecticut,
Maine, New Hampshire.
Which has been your favorite place so far?
New Hampshire.
New Hampshire. How long is the performance usually?
For 1 hour and 10 minutes.
1 hour and 10 minutes. So in that 1 hour and 10 minutes, what do you do? Describe to us what happens on stage.
We end. Uncle Jim first introduces himself with the chaperones, and we come do candas, and we sing a song. And Aunt Martha, she comes on stage and she says a speech about music for life, how it began, and we sing.
African Children's Choir has been around for 4 decades. Yes. Performed for many thousands of people, I guess, including notable figures, you know, Madiba, Nelson Mandela, Queen Elizabeth, and many others. What do you think has been the key to the choir's lasting success over these 4 decades?
One is the vision of the organization, which is helping Africa's most vulnerable children today, so that they're able to help Africa tomorrow. And I think that is of huge impact. Once someone gets to know that, you know, that's the backbone, that's the steering wheel for, you know, that's the cause for all this, they are inspired. And then number 2, you look at, you know, children. Children, once you empower children, you're empowering the world tomorrow. And once people realize and know the reason the organization was put in place, first of all, they're able to want to help and also be part of that. And I think looking at culture, the way we bring in our culture and teach people the different things about Africa in general, they want to be part of it because there is joy, there is goodness, amidst, the violence, amidst the poverty that is going on in Africa, there is a lot of goodness in it. And we are able to see that through the different children that have come in the choir, have joined the choir program, me inclusive.
What message do you hope the choir continues to send to the world and to the children who participate in it?
Yeah. So currently we are having the Just As I Am concert or tour, the album that we are doing on stage, performing on stage. And our goal is to bring healing and hope to thousands of people in the audience. And we want to spread the love. Just like the album states, come as you are. You don't need to be perfect. You don't need to be the best person, the wisest. Just come as you are.
Jackson, I think that's amazing. First question, though, I wanted to ask you is what happens, have you been told to those who have graduated over the years? Because 40 years means so many kids have passed away.
Absolutely. So when they're here in the US and other places in the world where they tour, they fundraise for their own educational needs and other needs they have back home. And over the years, many of them have gone on to give back to their communities, to work as counselors in these different camps, including Jim Luza, who is currently a tour leader. He was a young child who was brought up in this choir when he was a young man. Now he's giving back to the community and to the kids.
Oh, so that was part of the choir back then. Now he's a mentor.
Absolutely.
Oh, well, Jackson, thanks a lot. And, well, be sure to watch Africa 54's Entertainment Report. It's every Friday right here. And that's our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. From all of us in Washington, have a great weekend.